With us on the program today, Art Handel Marketing at Rapid City, South Dakota. Art was a longtime field man for the Hereford Association, but now has his own deal. When he retired, I guess you can say he's retired, but I don't think he really is, and has Handel Marketing. But let's go back to the beginning. How did you grow up? Did you grow up on a livestock farm?
Yes, Howard, I did. I was raised in southeast South Dakota, that's Scotland, South Dakota. I was born in January of 1937. I was born in a blizzard. They called the doctor, and the doctor was on his way and couldn't get, I don't know, evidently my dad made arrangements, and he went with the team and wagon for 2 miles to go get the doctor, and I wouldn't wait, I guess. My aunt delivered me, and I was going strong by the time the doctor and my dad got there. Just try and keep on going ever since. I was raised into a family of registered Hereford breeders, really. I had 2 grandparents that were registered Hereford breeders. My father's dad was started in the registered business, and my mother's stepdad was in the registered Hereford business. And so my roots in the Hereford cattle go back to the early 1900s, and the first registered cattle were, I don't know, in the 1915 to 1920 range, I guess, the way I've been able to figure it out. My dad was a registered Hereford breeder all of his productive life, and until I dispersed his herd at private treaty when he was 75 years old, I guess. But I was raised in the Hereford business and in the cattle business. Was very active in 4-H, FFA, coming up through high school, and just, of course, in 4-H I showed mostly Hereford cattle. To my knowledge, I believe I was the first 4-H exhibitor at the South Dakota State Fair that had a black baldy steer. And I caused a great dilemma. That's when we had Herefords, Angus, and Shorthorn. And they did not know where to put the black baldy steer. And anyway, just kind of continued on and going to college at South Dakota State University. And, in those days, so many of my friends were going to college, and we were all 4-H members and knew each other, and that was also in the days of the open class steer shows. Again, in those times, in the 50s and 60s, anybody could show a steer, and there were a lot of us that played the game pretty hard. We showed in Chicago at the International numerous times. Had champion Hereford steer in Chicago 2 different times. Showed the Grand Champion Group of 3 in Chicago 3 different times. American Royal in Kansas City, same kind of a deal. Had Champion Group of 3 there 3 or 4 times. We also showed in Denver. I always had 2 other partners, and they were 4-H members also. And, of course, we were getting older. By the time we finished up doing this, we were out of 4-H. We were in our 22, 23, 24-year-old range, and had lots of fun doing it, showed lots of good cattle. We would go to South Dakota State Fair, and if we didn't already own some of the best steers, we would just buy them from those that did. And out of that grew the junior Hereford, or junior associations of all breeds, really, is they decided us old guys were having way too much fun, and sometimes there was a little bit of skullduggery went on. There was quite a bit of alteration of cattle, of cutting and filling and doing some shown some of the tools that we utilized at that time. But that was the advent that really kind of started the junior associations for all the breed associations. So they outlawed the old ones and put it all to the youth.
Did you then, after you finished up that career, did you go right into the Hereford Association as a field man?
No, after getting out of college and got married to Karen in 1960, we had 3 daughters. Anyway, I worked with, we were with Pat and Boot Gantz of Geddes, South Dakota, and they were Old Hereford breeders. We were the first advisors and started the South Dakota Junior Hereford organization. And we did that in about 1963 or 4, I believe. And anyway, I was working at home with my dad, and we got into about a 3-year drought and just did not have enough income to support everything. And so one of my college classmates had left after school, had gone on, and he'd become general manager of a feed company. That was Dr. McDonald's Feed out of Fort Dodge, Iowa. I was visiting with him, and he gave me the opportunity to go to work for them, and I did that in 1965. I started traveling as a state supervisor, knowing nothing about the feed business, and I started out with 5 district managers and 200 salesmen. I got a fast education in marketing feed, and I worked for them until the end of 1969. The American Hereford Association, through my work with not only showing the steers, that's how I gotten acquainted with a lot of the staff from the American Hereford Association, and then also as an advisor for the South Dakota Association. And we were going to the annual meetings in Kansas City at that time, which was the Hereford headquarters also. But I knew a lot of people, and they had approached me about going to work and traveling for the association. So January 1 in 1970 is when I hit the road and started traveling, and traveled 33 years for the American Hereford Association, and left that association on December 31 of 2002. And I started Handel Marketing January 1 of 2003, and still on the road.
Yeah, you can't get off of the road, can you?
But I'm not on it near as much as I used to be.
Hey, so kind of interesting. You were showing steers then back in the, that would have been the 1950s.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the differences you see in the show steers that you had then as compared to the show steers you have now.
That was at the time, back in those days, we called them belt bucklers because the top of their backs came to about your belt, about the level of your belt if you were about 6 foot tall. And, of course, through the progression of time, we witnessed going from that to the cattle that if you were 6 foot tall, they were about up to your shoulder. And we went from 48 inches to 70-inch tall cattle and all the extremes in between. But, yeah, it was a very interesting advent of time that came through. And, of course, the English breeds, the Angus, Hereford, Shorthorns, all were kind of doing about the same thing, and on the size thing and so on. And then when the industry decided that we needed to make some changes and probably make them a little bigger is when we started introducing the continental breeds and brought in about 67 new breeds of cattle for quite a few years. that is what was kind of the turning point, and we finally got to the Chianina stage where the legs were pretty darn long on those cattle, and I still enjoy going back and looking at pictures from the 80s, 70s, and 80s when we had some of these extremities that just cattle that today we would not take a look at them, but they were part of the history of the cattle industry.
You know, you said you wound up showing a black baldy steer at a time when they didn't know where to put that steer. What led you to do that?
A girl, of course. I met her. I went to 4-H club, state 4-H club in Brookings, South Dakota, and met a young lady from west central South Dakota. Her dad was a large rancher, and he was a forerunner of the black baldy deal. He ran Hereford cows and used Angus bulls. And of course, I was dating her and got out there, and darn, he had some good calves. And so I decided I needed to feed one of them. And my mother and I jumped in our pickup and drove out there. This is before stock trailers. And so we drove around and found the steer one evening, and the next morning, Bert and I climbed in his airplane, and we flew out and found where the steer was, because they were on the White River Breaks in central South Dakota out there. And then we went out and captured him, put him in the back end of the pickup, and went back home with my black baldy steer.
And how was they didn't know where to put him? What were some of the comments that you got showing about black baldy?
Oh, there were numerous. Well, what are you doing now? They put me in the Hereford class because he had a white face. And the judge was very diplomatic. He put me third. He just took very good care of me. He got me out of the system. I wasn't in the championship drive at all. So, and he was a good steer. He could have participated, but that was fine, and it was a lot of fun doing it. And just, I've always tried to be innovative, I guess.
Well, after you left the Hereford Association, retired from there, and went into Handel marketing, give me some of the progression over the last few years of Handel marketing. What are you doing now?
Well, when I started that in 2003, and I was still working with just about every Hereford breeder in the territory that I worked with. I had a very good relationship with all the breeders that I dealt with, and I think I did, and they hired me to come help work their sales, and I still shot a lot of the pictures. I'd shot probably 95% of all the bull photos over the many years, and I kept that up for a couple more years until the body aches and pains told me it was time to slow down on that. Working sales was a big part of my business on bull sales, and of course that led to working in with commercial producers. When I did work with the association, I did a lot of work with certified Hereford beef as that was being developed, and I got to a lot of feed yards that were feeding Hereford cattle that ended up going into the certified Hereford beef program. At that time, the bulk of those cattle were going to the Greater Omaha packing plant in Omaha, and so as Hereford feeder cattle season came.
Art Handel, Handel Marketing at Rapid City, South Dakota. Thanks for joining us. Always great to have you with us. And we'll have more at another time. May God bless. And you come back and join us again, won't you? I'm Howard Hale.